I apologize for not getting a video out last week. I've been real busy with this wall here. The door is going to have one edge that looks like it's a seam in the wall panels, and in order to pull that off, I have to offset where the screws go on the panel. So it took quite a bit of figuring out how to do it, and once I got that figured out, I started getting these slats in, and that took quite a while. I got the lower slats in last week, and I've been working on these upper ones this week. I got one left to go. Let me show you how I'm putting these in, and then we'll get back to what's going on with this wall. And before I forget, the channel went over 1,000 subs last week. I'm not sure what it's at now, but it's over 1,000. Thank you guys very much for subscribing. With 1,000 subs, YouTube pushes the videos out a little better than they do when you're below 1,000 subs. So hopefully that helps the channel out a bit. So the first thing I'm doing is grabbing some slat material, depending on the width that the next slat needs to be. We have 1x8s, 1x6s, and 1x4s. Once you get into this area, most of them are 1x4s, except where the seam of a panel goes. Those are 1x6s. On the bottom, the panels are going up like that, and on the top, they're going like that. That's why the 1x6s are further apart up there. So I grab my board, bring it over here, and I get my exact length. These upper ones are really difficult. Get the exact length and then cut it to that length, go test it out. If need be, come back and trim it. Sometimes that happens a couple times. Once they're done, I number them and then bring them over there. And over there, I was putting in these screw holes here. Once those are in, at the end of the bench there, I was pocket screwing them. Once I got a stack of them pocket screwed, I bring them back here, and the next one in line gets put on here, and I add some glue to the back. The glue I'm using is this PL3X Premium whatever, and that's not the glue I usually use. I usually use, I think it's PL300 foam board glue, but they don't have that in the big tubes, and this takes a good amount of glue, so this was the only other one that works on foam board, so it's what I had to use. They used to sell the big tubes, but for some reason they don't sell them anymore. So, get this glued up like that. On the wider pieces, I put a bead all the way around the outside perimeter, and then do the squiggle down the middle. But on these 4-inch ones, I just do the squiggle, and then I use some Tight Bond 3 on the ends. That's going to be wood to wood. You can hear my shoes squeaking. I blew out my comfort sole a couple weeks ago, and I haven't replaced it yet, so it squeaks like crazy. Okay, hopefully you could see that. It's a good 1/8 of an inch proud of the surface, and the first screw that goes in is used to get this flushed up. Get it as flush as possible, The screw doesn't have to be driven all the way in yet. Then I get the 2 pocket screws in, or more if it's a wider board. Then that top is way out. Put one in here. And go up to the top and do the same thing I did with the bottom. Get it nice and flush. And then pocket screw. And I'm just using plain old 2-inch construction screws for the pocket screws. So you got to be kind of careful so that you don't blow it out. Then I fill in the rest of the holes, and I want these screws to bury in there about 1/4 of an inch. That way, they're into the stud on the other side of this foam by about 1 3/4 inches. You could see the foam moving up a little tighter against the studs. I was just looking at the video when I put this foam up, and I mentioned that when I put in these furring strips, that's what's going to really hold this foam in place. And it's going to hold the 3/4 inch plywood wall in place as well, very shortly. All right. Now I can make sure, as long as these are below the surface, that's just fine. You could see my squeeze out there of the glue, and that'll keep these slats from rocking when I'm screwing the panels onto them. Any little bit helps because this foam is really soft. The next ones to go on are these 12-footers here. Those are going to go on the bottom, kind of like that mid one right there. All of the pocket screws are waiting for it. That's going to be a difficult job because I'm going to have to get glue on, like 10 of these, and then push that up, get it wedged up there, and then it has to be pocket screwed over to the furring that goes around the door. That's what it's waiting on. And then pocket screwed to all of these in the same manner that we just did that one. Put a screw in, get it flush. I'll probably just put a screw or 2 in it and then move on to the next one, get all the way down, and then come back and throw all the screws in. Yeah, that'll be a little bit difficult. The thing that's holding things up right now is getting these mortises in the door. And that's because Amazon ripped me off. I ordered a DeWalt router, and they sent a DeWalt router and the correct box, but it had the wrong router in it. It's like they sent a returned router. They sent a tiny little router instead of the big plunge router that I ordered. I do have a big plunge router, but I'm going to have to do a little bit of work on it to get it back into functional shape. Yeah, it's not too bad. This is a really nice router, but it's so gosh awful heavy. I was thinking I was going to use that DeWalt router and put the 1.7 amp battery on it, so it's a little bit lighter. So it looks like I'm going to have to use this while I fight with Amazon over the ripoff. I'm also working on this ladder. I built this thing 20 some years ago, and it was in the shed that used to be right over here, which is now my daughter's tiny house. and it's going back in the tiny house, but instead of a ladder that goes straight up and down, we're going to make it more like a stairway. So I have to turn these treads. I have to cut some shims that are on a 9-degree angle, cut the feet at 9 degrees, and get each one of these treads shimmed to 9 degrees, and then put another tread over it. And then I'll be cutting the top, rounding that, some other stuff. So I'll probably do a little video on that. So I got this project, the room there, a chicken coop. I have a little bit left to do on the compressor, and I got to get this done. This is massive. Once this wall is in, I can complete a ton of stuff fairly quickly. So I got to work on this and all this other stuff at the same time. Give you a little peek at my notes before we sign off here. This is what I was talking about. The normal seam wants to go right here, but I'm moving it over to the edge of the door like this, and I'm going to disguise it. So, well, I'm going to attempt to disguise it. It just has to be way less noticeable than a gap, and hopefully that will hide it pretty well. The rest of it gets stuff like in front of it that are attached to the door, and the whole thing will just open up. Still a little complicated, but it should work. Yeah, we had to go with different sizes of panels all the way over to right in there somewhere, not quite halfway along the wall, much less so on the upper part. Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. You could see on this door that the seam comes to right here. It's the same on the other door, and I want it to come right to the edge of the door. It's not going to be rounded like this or anything, but the seam will be over here, and then the upper part is going to look just like that. So hopefully the door is going to blend in and you won't even notice it's there. So I'm going to get cleaning, and I will see you next week.